Alright guys, in today's video we have more PlayStation news and information to go over. We're talking about how well Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart ended up selling at the $70 price point. It turns out that it's doing extremely well. We're also talking about more comments that Jim Ryan recently made. He talks about the creation of new IP and how risky it is for Sony to do it. And he actually mentions Days Gone as well, which is fascinating, and I think some of you will want to hear what he has to say about that. We're talking about the Steam Deck because this is something that was recently announced and a lot of people are very excited for it, and it's very interesting because this could very well be the future of playing PlayStation games on a handheld potentially. And finally, we're talking about the rumors of a big deal between PlayStation and Netflix, which, yeah, there's definitely some interesting stuff going on there as well. So before we dive into it, guys, hit the like button to help the video out and show your support. And if you are new here to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well. But starting here, talking about Ratchet and Clank and how well it's continuing to sell, or has been selling, I should say. It says here, reading from Push Square, Insomniac Games is making bank for Sony this generation so far. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, despite releasing exclusively on the supply-constrained PlayStation 5, topped the US charts in June, rounding out a great month for PlayStation. MLB The Show 21 held strong in 4th position, while Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales climbed a few spots into 9th place. Stock issues meant that the PS5 had to make way for the Nintendo Switch in hardware unit sales and the Xbox Series consoles in hardware dollar sales, but all major platforms enjoyed double or triple dollar sales growth year over year, with overall industry spending up 5% compared to June 2020. PS5 also remains the fastest selling system ever in the US when it comes to hardware units. So even though the PS5 is clearly suffering pretty badly from a supply constraint, it's still managing to break that record or keep pace with that record, right? Which is surprising. You think that that's something that would have stopped by now. But it goes on to say, as for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, the sequel secured the highest launch month dollar sales of any title in franchise history and more than doubled those set by its predecessor in 2016. Although it's worth noting that the movie tie-in carried a reduced $40 price point, while Rift Apart retailed at Sony's new $70 price point. So yeah, I just thought that this was pretty revealing information, right? Not only was Ratchet and Clank at the #1 spot, but it's pretty much doing double what Ratchet and Clank 2016 did. Now, it's worth noting that they are talking about overall dollar sales. So yes, it's $70 versus Ratchet and Clank 2016 was $40. So sales-wise, it could be maybe just a little bit ahead the 2016 iteration, but it wouldn't surprise me if we found out it's actually double sales as well. I mean, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a game that is held in very high regard right now. People are really enjoying it, has very good word of mouth, and it seems like one of those titles right now that anytime somebody does manage to get their hands on a PS5, they're going to be likely picking up Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart with it. So, you know, I feel like it's important to take note here that there's been so much contention around the $70 price point with PlayStation 5 games, specifically PlayStation 5 exclusives. And as we can clearly see here, quality sells. You know, I've been trying to explain this to, people on the internet for some time now to seemingly no avail, where it's like you don't have to like the $70 price point, but you have to understand that just because you don't like it doesn't mean games aren't going to sell. It doesn't mean that there aren't 10 other people who are perfectly fine with it because they believe that what they're getting in return for that $70 will be worth it, right? What they're getting for that $70 is something of the highest quality. And it seems that people are very happy about, you know, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and it's doing extremely well. But we're going to move on to the next topic here, which is what Jim Ryan had to say about the creation of new IP and how PlayStation views it. Now, I just want to say before getting into what he had to say, I think PlayStation does it better than anybody else in the industry, and they have been for some time when it comes to creating new, specifically AAA IP. This is something that we all know is extremely risky, and you really don't see it too often, but Sony has just been absolutely on point when it comes to this, and it seems that they are doubling down on that going into this generation, which may seem like a surprise to some people, but there are a lot of new IP in the works right now behind the scenes with PlayStation Studios as well as their partners. So anyway, this is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, and it says Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan has said that new IP is the lifeblood of the entertainment industry, and although it's a difficult process, PlayStation has been lucky on that front. Speaking to China's TMT Post, Jim Ryan quoted the examples of Horizon Zero Dawn and Ghost of Tsushima. He added that alongside taking financial risks, creating new IP requires, quote, great courage, unquote. Jim Ryan also said that Days Gone, quote, performed well, unquote, which is an interesting comment in light of recent reports that Sony turned down a pitch for Days Gone 2. He separately revealed that PlayStation VR title Astro Bot Rescue Mission produced, quote, good results, unquote. So I have to say, before going any further, it is very interesting to hear Jim Ryan mention Days Gone, because as we know, we wanted a Days Gone 2. We know that Days Gone 2 performed well when it comes to sales, and financially, I assume it performed well. I don't know that for sure, but I know sales-wise it did relatively well. But now we have confirmation from Jim Ryan that it did perform well. And so it does leave you with this kind of confusion as to, like, why we're not getting a sequel. Maybe we will get one in the future, right? I mean, we talked about it the other day, but Sony Bend is making a new IP. Maybe after that, they'll get the chance to return to the Days Gone universe and do a Days Gone 2. I think that's certainly a possibility at some point, but I don't know. It's really interesting, but it is nice to hear that Days Gone did well. But it continues here by actually quoting Jim Ryan, and he says, I am very happy that we can do this, create new IP in the past few years, but it requires great courage and the courage to bear financial risks. It also requires trust in the studio, Ryan continued. The executive then went on to talk about a healthy circle. If your studio is doing well, then your confidence in the studio will grow over time, and you will be more willing to take risks and find the right time. Our relationship with the studio is in a period that I call a healthy circle. We need products, are willing to invest, and are willing to take risks. At the other end of this circle is the reputation of PlayStation Studios in the industry. So, again, I feel like the translation here is a little bit strange, as you can tell, but it sounds like what Jim Ryan's basically trying to say is that the better a studio does over time, right, the more confident Sony feels in kind of letting them take bigger risks and do different things. And, you know, I think we've kind of seen that. And so I just wanted to take a couple of minutes here to let you guys know what Jim Ryan's saying. You know, he's always going to point out Horizon Zero Dawn and Ghost of Tsushima as some of the best examples of, hey, we took risks creating this new IP, letting our studios create this new IP, and these risks really paid off. I did find it interesting that he actually mentioned Days Gone, but he does mention Astro Bot Rescue Mission as well. So we do have to remember that PSVR 2 is a thing, and we're going to probably see a lot of risky stuff done in the VR space going forward with PSVR 2, which will be interesting to follow as well. So yeah, you know, I always like to hear PlayStation talk about new IP because I think that Jim Ryan's actually correct. It is, you know, the lifeblood of the entertainment industry in general. And so it's just nice to see that Sony is not getting complacent and they still do care very much about taking risks and letting their studios do so. Again, I feel like they do it better than anybody else in the industry. But we're going to move on to the next topic, which is talking about the Steam Deck, which is basically a portable handheld PC, you know, Steam machine, whatever you want to call it. But this is something that was announced recently and people are very excited for it, understandably so. It's definitely a powerful handheld, probably the most powerful right now, and it can run AAA games, right? It's going to have its limitations. In fact, I'll actually put the specifications on screen right now. But what you need to know is that this handheld console coming from, you know, Valve is more powerful than a PS4 or an Xbox One, and it can run a lot of games. And so this kind of got people talking a lot recently about Sony and the handheld space. We know that the Switch kind of has, you know, the dominant role in the industry when it comes to console handhelds, but now we're starting to see Valve get in on the action with the Steam Deck, and it just kind of makes you wonder, you know, why isn't Sony pursuing this to some extent, right? Mainly because Sony has a history with this, and they've been relatively successful. We had the PSP, which was very successful for Sony. The PS Vita, not as successful, but you could very much argue that Sony is the reason it wasn't successful. And you have to wonder, like, what this is going to do. Like, is this going to be the thing that maybe makes Sony kind of reconsider, you know, getting involved once again with the handheld console space? But to be completely honest, I'm not sure that it will be. One thing I do want to mention to you guys that I just find so fascinating is something I didn't really think about when I first saw this announced, the Steam Deck, is how, wait a second, Sony released Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding, although I don't think Death Stranding was published by Sony on PC, but Death Stranding's on PC. And then we also have Days Gone now on PC with more games to come, you know, like Uncharted apparently. I just realized, like, you could play these games. You can play these PlayStation games on the Steam Deck, which in a way, it's like that is the closest, this is the closest thing we're gonna get right now or anytime soon, apparently, to a portable PlayStation console. Now, yes, obviously you can play a bunch of Xbox games and you're gonna have access to the entire, you know, Steam library and whatnot, which is great, right? So in a way, it's like you get the best of both worlds, but it just kind of got me thinking, right? Like, this may be the way, you know, PlayStation fans who enjoyed the PS Vita or the PSP, this might be the way that you can enjoy, maybe the only way you can end up enjoying, you know, PlayStation games on the go. Obviously, you know, when it comes to like PS5 games and whatnot, as of right now, they're not going to PC. They might in the future, and even then, I don't know that this will be powerful enough to run it, but I just thought that that was really interesting. You know, we had this weird situation where, you know, Sony created handhelds. They have, you know, a certain audience that wants to see the handhelds return, but Sony seems extremely reluctant or just not interested at all in doing a handheld. But yet we still have a way here to play these games on the go if you're somebody who ends up purchasing a Steam Deck. And you know, maybe this is how it's going to be for Sony. They continue to bring more and more games to PC. And if you're somebody who owns a Steam Deck, there you go. That's how you play your games portably. Obviously, it's not going to be integrated with the PlayStation Network and whatnot. And I think that that's, you know, a big turnoff for a lot of PlayStation fans. But I don't know. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about this. Some of you were asking my thoughts on it. I think the Steam Deck is really cool. I don't know if it's something I'm going to pick up, at least at launch, maybe in the future. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to be keeping my eye on, and I'm definitely going to be paying attention to how many more games Sony ends up bringing to PC, because, again, like, you know, you could play them on this handheld. So it's like a PlayStation handheld to a certain extent, right? So let me know down in the comments below what you think of the Steam Deck and whether or not you're going to be picking one up, and let me know if you want or think Sony will end up getting back in the handheld console space. But we're going to move on to the final topic, which is a very, very interesting topic that could end up being a big deal if any of this turns out to be true. And that is a rumored or speculated partnership between PlayStation and Netflix. I don't know if I can call it a rumor because no one's really claiming anything, but there's definitely some things here that are happening that make you raise an eyebrow. So imagery from PlayStation products have reportedly been found in the Netflix app's code. The images show a render of two DualSense controllers, artwork from Ghost of Tsushima, a logo that says N Games, and a shark icon. Data miner Steve Moser claims that a shark is the current working name of Netflix's gaming functionality, and states that the presence of PlayStation imagery could indicate a partnership between Netflix and Sony, which may see PlayStation games being offered through Netflix in some way. In April, Netflix agreed to a multi-year US licensing deal granting it exclusive rights to house Sony Pictures Entertainment films following their theatrical and home entertainment release windows. Building on Netflix's pre-existing deal with Sony Pictures Animation's films, the agreement gives the streaming giant exclusive first pay window rights to SPE movies, beginning with its 2022 film slate, including the upcoming Uncharted movie. Sony already has its own PlayStation Now subscription service, which enables players to stream a selection of PS2, PS3, and PS4 games. Alternatively, players can download most of the PS4 games and some of the PS2 games in the library. Netflix announced earlier this week that it has appointed former Electronic Arts and Facebook executive Mike Verdu to lead its expansion into the games market. Netflix intends to add video games to its streaming platform within the next 12 months, presented as a new programming genre. According to a Bloomberg source said to be familiar with the plans, the company isn't currently planning to charge extra for access to the games they added, although the new content may help it justify subscription price rises further down the line. Netflix is now recruiting for game development related roles on its website, although it's claimed the California-based company has yet to decide on a game development strategy. So a lot of very interesting information here, and I have to say that this could be the answer to Game Pass that Sony CEO or PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan referenced back in, I believe it was November of last year. A lot of people may have forgotten, but Jim Ryan was asked directly what Sony's answer or response to Xbox Game Pass is, or what it would be. And he said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, "We do have something we're working on, but we're not ready to talk about it just yet, or we're not ready to announce it today." And for a long time, people have been wondering, well, what is this? Is it just maybe, adding more and more value to PlayStation Plus? Is it doing something with the PlayStation Plus collection on PS5? Is it something with PlayStation Now, maybe rolling the two together, or is it something completely outside of that? And I'm starting to wonder if maybe this is what that ends up being. Now, we don't have much to go on other than just what this data miner found, but there's no doubt that this is strange, right? Like if you're gonna go looking into the Netflix app and you end up finding imagery of Ghost of Tsushima, DualSense controllers, stuff like this, I mean, it's one of these things where it's like, is Sony going to be getting involved with Netflix? And if you think about it, this would be a really smart thing for Sony to do, but it leaves the question, what about PlayStation Now? PlayStation Now is a thing that exists. Maybe we could see PlayStation Now rolled into whatever this service is, or maybe there's just going to be some type of benefit to, if you are, subscribed to PlayStation Now, you are also somehow subscribed to Netflix. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that Sony could do this, but, this could be a very big deal depending on what it ends up being, if it ends up being anything, because if there's any way for Sony to effectively combat Game Pass, I mean, like very quickly, very rapidly, to where it's like suddenly Sony has a Game Pass competitor, it's by integrating PlayStation somehow to Netflix, because Netflix is literally everywhere. And so this does bring up the question, well, would Sony, like, let's just, assume for a second here that there is going to be a partnership between PlayStation and Netflix. Would Sony end up putting all of their games onto, say, this Netflix gaming streaming service day one, right? And I'm going to say no, that's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to get day one PS5 releases, but I could see Sony maybe just like bringing certain games from their library over to this, Netflix gaming service, similar to what they're doing with PC, right? It sounds a little bit crazy, but I don't know, man. There's definitely something interesting going on here. We know that Sony and Netflix are already, negotiating, and they have negotiated, obviously, with the film rights, and Sony Pictures is separate from PlayStation, but still, it lets you know that there's some type of relationship there already in place. I don't know. I'm definitely going to be following this and seeing what it leads to, and it will be very interesting if Netflix and PlayStation do end up partnering. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Again, if you did, leave it a like. Make sure you leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.